The demand for a sign. The Pharisees and Sadducees came to Jesus and tested him by asking him to show us a sign from heaven. He replied, "When evening comes, you say, 'It will be fair weather, for the sky is red.' And in the morning, 'Today it will be stormy, for the sky is red and overcast.' You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. A wicked and adulterous generation looks for a miraculous sign, but none will be given in except the sign of Jonah." Jesus then left them and went away. The yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. When they came across the lake, the disciples forgot to take bread. "Be careful," Jesus said to them. "Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." They discussed this among themselves and said, "It is because we didn't bring any bread." Aware of their discussion, Jesus asked, "You of little faith, why are you talking among yourselves about having no bread? Do you still not understand? Don't you remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000, and how many basketfuls you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000, and how many basketfuls you gathered? How is it that you still don't understand that I was not talking to you about bread? But be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." Then they understood that he was not telling them to be on guard against the yeast used in bread, but against the teachings of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Peter's confession of Christ. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he was asked his disciples, "Who do people say is the Son of Man?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he warned his disciples not to tell anyone that he was Christ. Jesus predicts his death. From that time, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the 3rd day raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said. "This shall never happen to you." Jesus turned to him and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but things of men." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it. What good will it be for a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? or what can a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is coming in the Father's glory with his angels, and he will reward each person according to what he has done. I tell you the truth, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. The Transfiguration. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here if you wish. I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Please listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down on the ground, terrified. But Jesus came and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Do not be afraid." Then they looked up. They saw no one except Jesus. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus instructed them, "Don't tell anyone of what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." The disciples asked him, "Why then did the teachers of the law say Elijah must come first?" Jesus replied, "To be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things, but I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands." Then his disciples understood he was talking to them about John the Baptist. The healing of a boy with a demon. When they came to a crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. "Lord, have mercy on my son," he said. "He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not hear him." "O unbelieving and persuasive generation," Jesus said, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy here to me." Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed from that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "Because you have so little faith. I tell you the truth, that if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to the mountain, 'Move from here to here,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." When they came together in Galilee, he said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the 3rd day he will be raised to life." And the disciples were filled with grief. The temple tax. After Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma tax came to Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax?" "Yes, he does," he replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. "What do you think, Simon?" he asked. "From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own sons for the others? Or from others, sorry?" "From others," Peter answered. "Then their sons are exempt," Jesus said to him. "But so that they may not offend them, Go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find 4 drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours. The greatest in the kingdom of heaven. At the time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a little child to him and had him stand among them. He said, "I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes a child like this in my name welcomes me. But if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of things that cause people to sin. Such things must come, but woe to the man through whom they come. If your hand or your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it's better you enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into the eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than have 2 eyes and be thrown into hellfire. The parable of the lost sheep. See that you do not look down on one of those little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the faces of my Father in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep, and one of them wanders away, he will not leave the 99 on the hill. Will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, I tell you the truth, he is happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of those little ones should be lost. The brother who sins against you. If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault, just between the 2 of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over. If he will not listen, take 1 or 2 among others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen, tell it to the church. If he refuses to listen to the church, treat him as you would treat a pagan or a tax collector. I tell you the truth, whatever you bind to earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, I tell you that if 2 of you on earth agree about anything you ask for, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 come together in my name, there I will be with them. The parable of the unmerciful servant. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times?" Jesus answered, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began to settle the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he, his wife and his children all be sold to repay the debt. The servant fell on his knees before him. "Be patient with me," he begged, "and I will pay back everything." The servant's master took pity on him, cancelled the debt, and let him go. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 denarii. He grabbed him and began to choke him. "Pay back what you owe me," he demanded. His fellow servant fell on his knees and begged him, "Be patient with me, and I will pay you back." But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were greatly distressed, and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. "You wicked servant," he said, "I cancelled all the debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had the same mercy on your fellow servant, just as I on you?" In anger, his master turned him over to jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all that is owed. This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brothers with your heart.